everybody in Driftwood Public Library land. My name is Keith Rosson, and I am Zooming you from Portland, Oregon. We've got about 6 or 7 inches of snow here, so everyone's having a lot of fun. I'm going to give you a brief presentation as an Oregon legacy author, kind of about the Oregon landscape and setting in fiction, and a little bit about me and my books and just how setting is such a vital and almost like secondary character of fiction. I'd like to preface that with the knowledge that I am almost more nervous doing this as this like weird distanced Zoom recording thing that I am doing in-person readings. I can do those all day long, Q&As, all that stuff. I love it. This, like talking here, this is weird for me. So if it's a little stilted, I apologize. It's just kind of one of those things that we're doing, you know? So like I said, my name is Keith Rosson. I grew up in Newport, Oregon, on the coast, and went to like college here in Oregon. So much of my fiction, actually every novel that I've ever written, and many of my short stories either take place in Portland or Newport or on the coast somewhere. And so it's just, that sense of place is just absolutely ingrained in my fiction, and it's such an important thing to me, and I love writing about it. So let me just give you a quick rundown of my books, and then I'm gonna read a little bit from one of them to sort of show you how I encapsulate setting within my work. So my first published novel is this book called The Mercy of the Tide, and it's about a brother and a sister whose mother has died in a car accident. It was actually a collision with the sheriff's wife, and so these two children are grieving, and the sheriff is grieving as he's lost his wife, and a deputy. So those are the 4 main characters in this book, and it is set in a fictionalized Newport, Oregon, pretty much, in the 1980s. And this is probably, of any of my books, the most setting heavy of any of them. Some of them, you know, this is the one that's most reliant on a sense of place as a character, you know. So my second book is called Smoke City, and it is about a kind of down and out, once famous painter living in Portland who meets a man named Marvin Dietz, who just happens to be the reincarnation of this guy named Jeffrey Thoreau, I believe his name is, who was Joan of Arc's executioner back in the 17th century. So they go down on a road trip to Los Angeles for various reasons. So again, starts in Portland and then travels down to California. Big sense of place here. I mean, it's in its way, it's very much like a weird road trip buddy book, you know. So again, a sense of place is vital for that. And then my last one that came out in July of last year is Road 7. And this is about a cryptozoologist who has sent footage of a unicorn on a pumpkin farm in Hvilderland, which is a made-up island off of the coast of Iceland. And he hires a hapless assistant, and the two of them go to this small remote island off the coast of Iceland to try to find this supposed unicorn. And they get into all kinds of mishaps, and there's maybe a military base there, and maybe there's unicorn poop, and maybe there's the ghosts of dead British soldiers from World War II. I don't know, there's a lot going on. But again, starts in Portland, goes on to this coastal island that is entirely made up. And so again, you can't just kind of wing that and be like, and it was cold and there were lots of rocks there. Like, setting is important. You have to convince your reader, give them enough information to let them put them there. you know, without overloading them with information. So again, setting is so important. I love writing about the Oregon coast. My wife and I, Robin, go to Lincoln City as often as we can. We absolutely love it there. And before I get too deep into this, I just want to give a shout out to Hobbs and Kirsten and Matt and just the entire staff there and the volunteers. Like that, you guys have a great library there. Like they really work so hard, and it's a tremendous resource. And so hi to all those guys. Thank you for everything. So I'd like to just read about a page and a half of from The Mercy of the Tide, where two characters are, these two high school students are hanging out down at what is essentially the turnaround at Nye Beach in Newport in the 1980s. And so this is, again, just we have to evoke a sense of place to bring the readers there, you know. So here they are hanging out together. So I call Nye Beach Wolf Point in this novel. And there are other fictionalized things that are like little cool breadcrumbs. As long as you know it's Newport, that like you see things and like, oh my gosh, that's so neat. It's a little Easter egg that he put there. So Wolf Point turnaround on a school day where he and Toad hid from the wind beneath the circular concrete wall of the parking lot, down where the sand was wet and filthy from a runoff pipe. The pipe today dribbled a thin gruel of green, nearly phosphorescent water every few minutes, water that would then fan out in a thinly carved channel that wended slowly, patiently toward the tide line. The turnaround stank here, no bones, and there were sand fleas in the dunes, and it was too goddamn windy on either the beach or the turnaround itself, impossible to smoke. When summertime arrived, even this place, this noxious section of beach near the pipe, would be crowded with families. Big-hipped parents in golf visors and neon-colored windbreakers, disappointed in the unending blustery gales. Their children disappointed in the cold, cold water, the brittle tang of salt in their mouths. The tide bringing with it not fistfuls of decorative seashells, but rather the distended membranes of dead jellyfish washed ashore. There would be teenagers wearing Walkmans, again, it's the 1980s, trying fervently to distance themselves from their parents, and sand everywhere, gritty in everyone's mouths, crystalline between the folds of everyone's fingers, their toes. Taffy bought at the bayfront would pull out an errant tooth here and there. Motel beds were found at night to have grown malicious with springs and strange lumps. There was always, always the ceaseless cawing of the gulls outside. Shower floors of beachside motels were rough with grit, and always the hint of mold and the summer traffic of 101. Sweet Jesus. Finally was the odd accumulation of the town's innumerable stray dogs, the constant rip and snarl of random dogfights drifting up and down the lonely beachfront. Packs of these half-feral dogs warring to the teeth over scraps of trash left by the tourists, or by the high schoolers that used the hidden coves of the beaches to party. You lived here and it became familiar. You lived here and you didn't even see these things anymore. You were local, after all. This was your life. But for now, it was winter and the beach was empty. The dogs, like the tourists, were mostly gone, though unlike the tourists, they still made the occasional appearance on the off-season. These half-starved revenants seen trotting down along the surf at night or in the mist of a brush-steel dawn. Snouts pressed to the ground in search of some elusive scent, the ghost of old gustatory riches. Sam sat down on a log next to the runoff pipe, and the wind shirred the bursts of crabgrass that topped the dunes around them. He tucked his chin into his shoulder and lit a Newport. He was smoking a lady's cigarette, more specifically his mother's. He prided himself a camel man before the wreck, but now Newports exclusively, a connection thin as a hair maybe, but still a tangible remnant. Toad stood nearby, absently drawing gigantic penises in the sand with a crooked branch of driftwood. So that's one of those things where you go on for quite a while. In the beginning, you kind of lay the foundation of extensive descriptions, and then you don't have to do as much later on throughout the book. So you don't need to keep talking about the sand and the motels and what it's like during summertime versus wintertime. You know, it's already been established, and you don't need to do as much legwork to establish a sense of place. So I guess I want to talk a little bit about how we establish a sense of place in fiction, and how landscape is important. I firmly believe, and I'm just kind of flying blind here. I don't have a pitch recorded or planned out or anything, you know, but I truly think that place is as important as any other element of good fiction. Okay, so you've got characterization and plot and pacing and dialogue and all these like intense interlocked things, and place has to be one of them, you know. And so it really is a question of, you root the reader in by just offering little details. So if you're to the writers out there, in a short piece, a short story or whatever, you don't need to do as much legwork as I did there to establish a sense of place. But we need to see what your reader is seeing. We need to smell what they're smelling. We need to feel what they're feeling. What is gritty? What smells good? What is glinting up against their eye? You know, so just offering little bits of that here and there that's how you root the reader. So if you're going for a walk on the beach, you can talk about all those things, the detritus of trash, or little bits of sandworm chewed driftwood, you know, or the squeak of the sand against your feet when it's that like perfect mixture of like wet and dry sand, you know, or the way that seagulls can just hang kind of motionless in the air above you, or the mist that comes in on a particularly rough day with the waves, how there's like almost a mist kind of hung in the air because of it, you know, or the smell of salt or brine in the air. Like there's just so many details, and you don't have to do every one, but doing that and giving us those breadcrumbs moor us to the page. They cement us there, you know. And so if you give me a couple of those spread out throughout your story or throughout your longer piece, it anchors me there, you know. And so we don't need pages and pages and pages of every bit of minutia, but like little things scattered here and there are like very helpful and very convincing. And honestly, I think that's kind of about it. Keep it like more to your sights, your sounds, your smells. Don't inundate the reader with a sense of place. If it's a longer piece, like a novel, you can go a little heavy at the beginning, and then you don't have to do as much work later on, because we already have an idea of what it's like, what the setting is like. But we got to have some bits of information, you know. And then I guess I'd just like to, with the last bit of our time, just kind of talk about my own publishing path. I have 3 novels out, those 3 novels that I showed you. Then I have a new book coming out. I think by the time you watch this, it will be out or within a few days. So it's a story collection called Folk Songs for Trauma Surgeons. Every one of my books have been published by Meerkat Press. They're a fantastic small press out of Atlanta that do a lot of science fiction and fantasy stuff, and they like, this was the first book that they ever published. The Mercy of the Tide was the first novel they ever published, and very much took a risk on me. And I had a literary agent at the time who submitted mercy to every big five publisher under the sun, and there was like some interest in it, but nothing nothing took, you know, and that's kind of been my experience, because it's the Mercy of the Tide is like all my books, a kind of weird mishmash of literary fiction, but there's a monster in it, but it's so reliant on like relationships with the main characters and how they enmesh, you know. So it's a weird, like all of my books are just this weird genre combo of like stuff smushed together. I want to be like a literary writer so bad, but I cannot not write about ghosts or werewolves or monsters or whatever, you know. I just can't do it. So got a lot of interest with the big five publishers, some mild interest, sorry, with the big five publishers, but nothing took. And then Meerkat Press took a chance on it. They loved it. And that book has since gone on to do really well. And it was nominated, it was on the preliminary ballot for the Bram Stoker. It's been optioned twice. It's currently, the producers are hoping to attach an executive producer to it, and then they're going to start pitching it as an 8-episode TV series. And it's kind of been, that's been my process with my books, is that a lot of people are like, I don't know, it's a little, we don't know what we would do with it. You know, Smoke City is, again, it's about like a reincarnated executioner from France and a drunk painter traveling down to LA, you know. It's a weird mishmash of stuff, but like that one went on to win some awards, you know. Like that's the cool thing about small press publishing, is that they are able to take risks that big five publishers necessarily aren't, you know. So every kind of publishing journey has its own, there's no one way to have a publishing journey. There's no one exact way where you have to get a literary agent, or you have to publish with a big five, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. Like, you know, my first book was published when I was 40 years old. Like there's no time limit. You're not going to run out of time if you don't do it immediately. And it's not like, yeah, there's just so many ways to go about. Everyone's publishing journey is different, you know. And then Road 7 came out last summer, right in the midst of lockdowns and all of that stuff. And I had also just become like a foster dad, and I was like very swamped and entrenched with those two things were just like very intense at the time. So Road 7 came out, and I wasn't necessarily able to like push that one the way I ideally would have been able to, because with small presses, you have to do a lot of the legwork yourself, you know, as far as getting the word out there, because budgets just aren't as big. Like big five publishing is just like, they're like, all right, we love your book. We have 6 weeks to throw money at it, and then it's essentially done, you know, which can be very successful for some books. And then some books, once those 6 weeks are over with, that's kind of it, you know. But with smaller presses, there's more avenues for everyone to just hustle as hard as they can, and there's no real time limit to it, you know. Like a lot of the sales and pre-orders are very important, but later on, there's still time. Like there's no shelf life for books in that way, and particularly small press books. And so that book is starting now, like 8 months later, starting to get a bit more of attention, you know. And so that's one of the really wonderful things about small press stuff. And then like I said, in a couple weeks I have folk songs for trauma surgeons coming out. I don't have any copies to show you right now, and that's like 10 years worth of stories all combined together. I think it's 15 stories. Some of them have won some awards, some of them are previously unpublished. They're all, again, unabashedly weird. And it's, again, that there's like some crime stories, and some literary fiction stories, and then some that are like fabulous, you know, so it's again all over the map. And that is one of the beautiful things about small presses, is that they're just able to take on those books, you know. But I also think that major publishers are getting a lot more brave and willing to publish challenging fiction too, you know. And I guess that's really kind of it. Just the Oregon itself, all of my books feature Oregon in some way. The coast and Portland are two like just vital places for me as a person and as a writer. And we're incredibly lucky to have both, you know. And normally this is the time when I would like be quiet and take Q&As and all that stuff, but we're not doing that right now. So I just wanted to also, again, thank the Driftwood Library staff. Libraries saved my ass as a kid. Like, I think they're incredibly valuable civic resources, and there's a lot more than just books there, but I love the books mostly. But all the people that work there are just like awesome people, and I just admire the hell out of them, you know. So that is absolutely, I go to a lot of libraries, and that is absolutely one of my favorite libraries that I've ever been to. So I guess that's it. If there's a way to ask questions, you're free to email me. I'd love to hear from you. My email is Keith Rosson, R-O-S-S-O-N, just like that, ROSSON @gmail.com. And I'm happy to answer questions about publishing or whatever, you know. I didn't know a lot when I was first starting out, and I did a lot of trial by fire, you know. So if I can help you guys out with any questions or anything like that, please let me know. And again, it was, I really appreciate this opportunity. So thanks very much, and have a good day. Bye-bye. Now I'm going to end this. All right, see you.